When you're facing a fast power loop, your hand needs to be like a missile defense system. Your only job is to intercept the ball. Alright team, how important do you think backhand-to-backhand rallies are? In the modern men's game, the backhand is powerful. The moment you step around to use your forehand, they'll jam you or attack the wide backhand corner. Second point, how critical is serve placement when you watch a professional match? Take LeBron, for example. His left side spin is a major weapon. He varies his serves to the short backhand, short forehand, a surprise long serve, and deep to the backhand line. His serve variations gave Ruebwa a lot of trouble. I feel LeBron plays with incredible creativity. We can learn by analyzing his patterns. In that final, LeBron's placement was very wide and his strategy was crystal clear. No matter where he served, the tactic was to first pressure the opponent's backhand, then attack the wide angle. Third question, how important is defense? Think about it, in a match, if you can block just 2 of your opponent's attacks, their confidence will drop significantly. I just analyzed a game between Ruebwa and LeBron. LeBron won 6 points with his serve and attack, while Ruebwa only managed 2. This proves that even for world champions, defense is absolutely crucial. Next, variation is important. But for players under a 1900 rating, your primary goal should be to reduce your own unforced errors. For instance, focus on pushing so they can't loop easily, change direction when they do attack, and vary your placement in rallies. That's how you win. You don't even need a powerful loop. A pips-out player can win matches without one. We have a local amateur legend who never played professionally but beat a retired world champion simply because of his great serves and rock-solid defense. I've played him, and you just can't attack through his defense. It takes me 5 or 6 shots in a rally just to create an opportunity. It feels like I'm playing against a training robot. So, my hope is that all of my students will start to prioritize their defensive skills. Once your defense is solid, you can beat players at your level simply by forcing their errors. If you can build a game with both offense and defense, and transition well between them, you can easily add 200 to 300 points to your rating. Okay, let's focus on defense today. How do you practice it? Since everyone loves to practice attacking, here's what you do. Tell your partner, you loop, I'll block. That way, you both get to practice what you need. When I'm looping, my training partner blocks with intense focus because he knows if he can handle my spin, blocking anyone else will feel easy. Once you're accustomed to high-quality shots, handling lower-quality attacks in a match becomes much simpler. First, you must develop a defensive mindset. Tell me, when you're blocking, what do you fear most? Speed? Wide angles? Or heavy spin? Let's start with speed, because that's actually the easiest problem to solve. Your opponent can only hit with speed when your previous shot had poor quality. As long as you keep your return low, their instinct will be to loop it with an upward arc for safety, which automatically slows the ball down. If your opponent is constantly smashing your shots, it's because your previous ball was too weak, too high, too slow, or had no spin. For example, if they serve topspin and you just pat it back, of course they're going to smash it. If you feel your opponent's attacks are consistently too fast, you need to analyze the trajectory of your own shots. Focus on keeping your serves and pushes as low as possible. See? If I can keep my push very low, my opponent cannot generate speed. Even your long serves must be low to avoid giving up an easy attack. If you can't loop a backspin ball, it's a chain reaction. It's because your serve was poor, your recovery was slow, your footwork was off, or your anticipation was wrong. Now, let's talk about the principle of spin. Which ball is spinnier, one contacted at the peak of the bounce, or one contacted later, on the fall? The second one, of course. Remember this rule: the heavier the spin, the later the contact point. A loop that is contacted on the fall will have maximum spin. Second, a bigger swing does not equal more spin. In fact, a large, open swing is often less spinny. A compact, explosive motion is what generates heavy spin. So, to recap, late contact equals more spin, and a compact motion equals more spin. Remember these 2 points. Third, a more closed racket angle generates more spin. Look at a player like Miwa Haramoto. Her forehand racket face is extremely closed. That shot is pure friction and incredibly spinny. Alright, quick test. Which is easiest to block, a ball contacted on the fall, at its peak, or on the rise? Even with the same racket angle, blocking on the rise is by far the easiest. So why is our defense often poor? Because after we push, we get scared and pull our racket back behind our body. You can't block from there. It's the same on the backhand side. I constantly see amateurs push the ball and then retreat. Once you see your opponent begin their looping motion, you cannot afford to freeze in place. You must get your racket in position immediately. A high spin loop is never that fast, it gives you plenty of time to react and prepare. If they hit a fast power loop, that means the problem was with the quality of your previous shot. If you can learn to block spinny loops on the rise, you will solve 80% of your defensive problems. You must block from inside the table. After your push, bring your hand forward over the table to prepare, don't leave it back. Even if the loop is deep, you can still step in and block it on the rise. By blocking on the rise, you use your opponent's power against them, and your return will be much faster. This applies to both forehand and backhand. Do not be afraid of the spin. The longer you wait, the more the spin kicks off the table, the higher the arc, and the less time you have. If you wait too long, it's over. The ball will fly out of bounds, no matter how much you close your racket face. I'll show you. If I block the ball late, even with a completely closed racket, it will still go long. If you contact the ball at its peak or on the fall, your block is destined to go out. The only way to save it is to slap at the ball, which is just pure luck. Second topic, let's talk about the correct way to hold the racket for handling spin. To control heavy topspin, should you hold the racket horizontally, pointing sideways, or vertically, pointing upwards? Vertically, exactly right. If I try to block a high, spinny loop holding the racket horizontally, the ball will fly out. I must hold it more vertically. You need to form a V shape with your arm, elbow low, hand high. That's how you control the ball's arc. The same is true for the backhand. If you hold the racket horizontally, the block will go long 100% of the time. You must raise your forearm. This makes the block feel effortless. With this technique, I can even be aggressive and punch the ball. You must hold the racket relatively vertically. This applies to penhold backhand blocks as well. If your elbow and forearm are at the same height, you will naturally create an upward trajectory. Only by raising your forearm can you press down and control the ball. Establish that elbow low, forearm high position to press down on the ball. This applies to the forehand side too. Don't worry about trying to copy the fancy counter loops you see on TV. Why bother learning that? If you can simply block the ball to a wide angle, your opponent won't recover in time. That's all you need. Don't focus on low percentage shots. Even as a professional, I might only land a few counter loops out of 10. It's not a reliable shot. When the match is on the line and my fate depends on it, I'm choosing the safe block every time. So, to summarize point 2, against heavy spin, keep your elbow low and forearm high to control the arc. Third question, do you use your wrist when you block? Watch my motion. Does it look like my wrist is moving? It may not seem like it. But if you look very closely at the racket face, you'll see there is a micro adjustment. It's just a very small motion. I believe the single biggest problem with blocking, and this is the most important lesson today, is that your hand is too soft. By soft, I mean your grip isn't firm. The racket is loose and unstable. This is the complete opposite of looping, where you need a relaxed wrist. For blocking, you must grip the racket as firmly as possible. Lock it in place. Your arm and racket must feel like a solid stick, not a flexible whip, which is the feeling you want for a loop. Let me demonstrate. If you block with a firm, solid grip, the shot becomes very easy to control. The same principle applies to quick counter drives and even counter loops. Look at my hand. The grip is engaged and firm, not relaxed. You must squeeze the handle on both your forehand and backhand. This is the most critical element for maintaining a stable racket face on your block. This is even more important when blocking a power loop. Watch, if my wrist is loose and wobbly, the block is completely unstable. On the backhand, it's even worse. But with a locked wrist, your arm becomes a solid lever. For counter looping, quick countering, and blocking, the principle is the same. You must grip the racket tightly. Do not let the head of the racket wobble back and forth. You need a very firm feeling. This is the one technique in table tennis that requires you to be firm and hard, not relaxed. You can add a bit of friction, but it should not come from a relaxed, snapping wrist motion. This is true for both penhold and shakehand grips. You simply don't have time for the relaxed acceleration that you use in a normal loop. Lock your wrist. You can control any amount of spin if your wrist is locked solid. Watch the pros when they counterloop from mid-distance. Their wrist angle is completely fixed, it does not move at all. So, remember this: first, grip your racket tightly, leaving no gaps between your fingers and the handle. Second, your contact must be crisp and solid. No soft touches, no loose motions, no wobbling. Our fourth key point: your forearm's path must adapt to the trajectory of the incoming ball. For example, to loop a backspin ball, my forearm must travel in a down and up motion. But what about blocking a topspin loop? In a simple drill, if you use that same motion, the ball will fly out. But in a full table rally against a fast ball, if your forearm is still dropping and then coming up, you will be too late. That down-up motion you've drilled for your forehand drive is a habit, and it's precisely why you can't keep up with speed when you're blocking. Even if the movement is smaller, that instinct to drop the racket and lift it is still there, and it's too slow. When you're facing a fast power loop, your hand needs to be like a missile defense system. Your only job is to intercept the ball. Watch. As he attacks anywhere on the table, my job is to move my racket directly to meet the ball. Intercept it here, intercept it there. That is the only way to keep up with the pace and block a fast shot. This is why, as I said, your racket must be up. If your elbow and forearm are parallel, it's risky. If it's low, it's impossible. You'll either be too slow or the spin will make the ball pop up. You have to keep your racket held up and ready. That is the only way to have the reaction time needed to find and defend the ball. If your arm is wide open, of course you're going to miss shots. You're leaving huge gaps in your defense. That flawed technique might work against your regular training partner because you're used to them, but you'll look like a beginner against a new opponent. So, the faster your opponent attacks, the higher and more forward your racket should be, ready to jam them. Watch me, he attacks, I jam him. Jam, jam. Your mindset must be to intercept the ball, not to try and take a full stroke. It's impossible. Now for the second key point: what if the opponent's loop is extremely spinny? Against a fast ball, our block is a forward motion in a straight line, correct? On the backhand, it's the same, a straight, forward path. But if you use that same straight line block against a heavy spin loop, the ball will fly off the table every time, and you'll lose your confidence. Remember, table tennis is a mental game. When they see you hesitate, they gain confidence. So here's the solution: against heavy spin, you must learn to use your forearm to guide the ball down. Your motion must be slightly downward. Look at my racket's starting position versus its ending position. See how there's a drop in elevation? The path is downward. You still contact the ball on the rise, but your forearm guides it down to control the spin. So, let's review. If your block is going long, use a forward and down motion. For fastballs, block straight forward. For high spin loops, block forward and down. Combine this with keeping your racket up for fast balls, making early contact against spin, and adjusting your racket angle, and you've solved the problem. At its core, defense is about interception and redirection, not counter-hitting. The key to defensive positioning is to lock down the cross-court. Remember this. For example, if you serve to their backhand, you must immediately prepare your position to cover the cross-court return to your backhand. If you serve to the forehand, cover the cross-court forehand. After your backhand serve, adjust your stance and use your body's center of gravity to guard that half of the table, because that's their highest percentage shot. If you attack or push to their forehand, are you just going to stand there? No. You immediately move to cover the cross-court angle. If they try to go down the line, you're still in a good position to recover. I guarantee an amateur player cannot hit a clean winner down the line against you if you're positioned correctly. The way to improve is to develop your awareness and learn to outthink your opponent. Most amateurs have predictable patterns based on their technical flaws. For instance, a player who doesn't complete their follow-through will almost always hit to the middle or their backhand side. A player who doesn't use their waist rotation can't hit a powerful shot down the line. A player who tends to pull their arm sideways will hit it to your forehand, so you should wait there. After you play a short or half-long ball to their forehand, you should immediately move to cover your own forehand side. If a player has an incomplete stroke, you should anticipate the ball returning to the middle or your backhand. If a player has their racket angle like this, they can only hit cross-court, or at best, to the middle. Some players like to wipe the ball with a brushing motion. They will almost always change direction to your forehand because it allows them to use the ball's pace. You must learn to observe your opponent. In the long run, the most interesting and fastest way to improve is through strategy, not just boring technical drills. For example, if you see that wiping motion, you know they can't hit a wide cross-court angle. So, you adjust your ready position to cover the straight line and the middle. If your opponent generates power by swinging sideways, you can essentially give up the other corner and just focus on blocking their favorite angle. So, I want you all to find the joy in the strategic side of this game. If you spend years just trying to correct your technique, the game will become a painful, passive chore. The real fun lies in figuring out the puzzle.